Yo, what is good, YouTube? It's your boy Leach back here with another reaction video. Make sure y'all hit that sub button, turn them notifications on, and make sure y'all follow the socials on the screen. Be much appreciated. I give thanks to the man above for another day. God bless. I love y'all, man. And yeah, let's get right into it. We got breaking news out of the transfer portal. Dylan Raiola has committed to Oregon.
It's the latest from our partners there, Matt Zinnes and Chris
Number
Hummer.
5 QB in the
former
portal.
five-star prospect
2,000
spent
pass
the
yards,
past 2
18
seasons with the Cornhuskers,
TDs,
and this year
6 picks with
he threw for
Nebraska
2,000
in
yards,
2025.
18 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. But before all that, after that fracture in that fibula in November. Now his decision comes regardless of what happens with Dante Moore, if he's going to go to the NFL or maybe return to Eugene. Our partners at 24/7 Sports at Raiola is the number 5 QB in the portal and number 14 overall prospect.
But I think there's like an 80% chance.
All right, for more on this, I want to bring in Chris Hummer. And Chris, we talked about this morning, and thank you, Dylan, for giving us some breaking news here. Your reaction to this becoming official, him taking his talents out there with Oregon.
It's expected, but still kind of crazy when you think about it. I mean, this was Nebraska's future. This is a guy whose dad played for Nebraska. His uncle was the offensive line coach at Nebraska. His brother, who was committed to Nebraska. And 2 months later, Dylan Raiola is Oregon's quarterback of the future. It's almost like, to be frank, Dylan Raiola willed it into existence. This is the school, talking to sources around his family, that Dylan wanted to go to the entire time when he went in the portal. And it seemed to go slow. But as soon as Oregon was eliminated from the playoffs, Dylan Raiola took a visit.
But I will say this, bro. It is a slow process in the portal. They got to take these visits, bro. Like, it takes time, man. It's just not like a commit, like, right now. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to see what other schools, you want to go visit, or, what schools may want you. So, yeah, that's crazy. Raiola left Nebraska, bro. Bruce Willis said his uncle was defense coordinator, or not defense coordinator, defense line coach, and his brother was also committed there too.
And he committed shortly after. So this is either a very talented answer and successor to Dante Moore, or it's the best backup quarterback in America next year. We'll find out which one of those two it is going to be shortly. But either way, it's a huge addition for Oregon and one of the biggest transfer moves of the cycle.
Yeah, that's the question mark when it comes to him in terms of take a look at it. When you talk about those QBs in the portal, they're still waiting for answers here to Sam Levitt. We'll get to that. And then Hassan Longstreet from USC, where they may find their new stomping grounds. But the fact that he's going there, possibly be a QB2, you don't know the future, as he mentioned, with Dante Moore. Your thoughts on that whole dynamic there in Oregon?
It's fascinating, right? Like, you just don't see a high-profile quarterback like Dylan Raiola willing to sit very often. I mean, no quarterbacks are willing to sit in this era. You just mentioned Hassan Longstreet. Like, he didn't want to sit for another year at USC, so he hopped in the portal.
You gotta play.
And Dylan Raiola is potentially choosing to do this. It's actually very similar to what Dante Moore chose to do so 2 years ago when he left UCLA and went to Oregon to sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year.
I mean,
it's not a guaranteed. Dylan Raiola might start for Oregon next year. Dante Moore could still declare for the draft. I think it's kind of 50-50 right now, talking to people around college football about Dante Moore's future. So this is Dylan Raiola choosing development and the opportunity to win national championships over the ability to start right away, which is a very fascinating and frankly mature development from somebody in Dylan Raiola that I think is now going to be at his 6th school in 7 years. So he's moved around a lot, but this is a situation where Dylan Raiola is choosing to potentially stay still, learn, and develop over time.
So since last week, we've had Deuce commit. We now have, of course, Raiola going to Oregon. You look at the number 1 guy, Sam Levitt, we've talked about for weeks. How does this maybe expedite his process looking for a new home?
I don't think it changes a lot. I was still expecting a Sam Levitt decision here in the next day or two. He's made his visits. He's tripped to LSU. He's tripped to Tennessee. He's tripped to Miami.
Bro, why y'all keep talking about that? Why are you worried about when they're gonna commit, bro? Like, give them time, bro. Like I said, these damn visits, bro. They take a minute, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Sam Levitt will commit when Sam Levitt wants to commit.
Miami, and this is a guy who just kind of is deciding between the 3.
Whoever gets
LSU and Miami, particularly, I think are kind of the teams I'm looking at most among those 3 with him. And he went to Miami last, I think had a good visit. LSU, I think, had some cleanup to do after the DeMont Williams situation happened while he was on campus. But LSU is a team that he's had strong interest in as well. And he's kind of the last big domino, at least in terms of quarterbacks with proven starting experience on the open market. And whichever team misses on him, be it LSU or Miami,
wonder where a long street will
have
go
to
from
scramble
USC, bro.
to find their answer.
That's a big name.
I was going to ask you that when you talk about so many teams still looking for that QB1 between Sam Levitt, of course, dealing with that injury, but should be fine for camp. And Hassan Longstreet doesn't have the starter experience. Could that expedite the process for both? And maybe a domino before one of the other starter experience. But of course, I was going to ask.
Be it LSU or Miami.
Oh, yeah, Deuce Knight went to Ole Miss. I missed that. Byron Brown went to Auburn from USF. That's tough. And then Rocco Back, obviously. That was a while ago. Went to Penn State to follow his coach. Josh Hoover from TCU. Bro, that's underrated to Indiana. I like that one.
One's going to have to scramble a little bit to find their answer.
I saw the other ones.
I was going to ask you that when you talk about so many teams still looking for that QB1 between Sam Levitt, of course, dealing with that injury, but should be fine for camp. And Hassan Longstreet doesn't have the starter experience. Could that expedite the process for both? And maybe a domino before one of the other?
About that. He'll be healthy next year.
I would anticipate you see Levitt first, but we've seen in recent days.
Dude, why do they keep talking about this? This shit pisses me off, bro. Why does it matter when who commits, bro? Like, why does that matter? I mean,
like younger quarterbacks can sometimes jump the line or at least go first. What? Deuce Knight committed while DJ Lagway was on campus at Ole Miss.
I mean, that long streak, I'm pretty sure he just hopped in the portal, bro.
LSU, at least how it sits,
I would say Levitt's been in our minute.
Take
so
Hassan Longstreet before it gets a decision from Sam Levitt. I think you need to know what Sam Levitt's going to do. And I don't think Hassan Longstreet was leaving USC in a situation where he had to sit just to go somewhere where he has to sit again. At least that's my read on the situation. These things are in flux. These things can change. LSU needs multiple quarterbacks, but I would imagine you see Levitt happen before Longstreet.
Oh, yeah, we can always change, Chris. We're just getting started. We have so much more time before this thing closes up on January 16th. Thank you for joining us there with that breaking news.
Chris said, bro.
With Dylan Raiola taking his talents out there with the Ducks in Oregon. We'll see how that pans out. Don't forget the conversation continues on the college football page on YouTube. All you got to do is tap into that QR code and subscribe. Nobody better to talk about this. My guy Chip Patterson, of course, this news coming out today. Your reaction initially on Dylan heading out to Oregon is what?
Fantastic decision by Dylan Raiola, right? We always judge our quarterbacks by their decision making, and this was a huge decision as he tried to figure out where he was going to go with his career. A career that, yes, has shown us flashes of
Dante Moore come back, Raiola, you gonna have to grind your ass off, bro.
But has not quite had the results. Now, injuries very clearly, as you mentioned, ended this season, one that had a lot of expectations earlier than expected. But as Dylan Raiola looks for his post-Nebraska moves, the fact that he's going to a place where they've switched out offensive coordinators multiple times, and yet, what have they had? NFL-bound quarterbacks. Yep. There is something to be said for the place where Bo Nix was able to go and get himself drafted. The place where Dylan Gabriel was able to go and get himself drafted. And as you mentioned, we'll see what Dante Moore decides, but whenever he decides, that boy's going to be drafted. And so you maybe were finding yourself, your stock was sliding. You were going to go to a place that is healthy, a place that's going to have a better offensive line than what you had at Nebraska, a place that has better skill position players than what you had at Nebraska. Now it's going to be on you and the development piece to get back to full health and get back to playing some of your best football. So for the first thing that stands out to me, Brandon, when I'm considering Dylan Raiola, I think this was an excellent decision for him.
When it comes to it, though,
Chip, if he wants to go to the NFL, bro,
I mean, here
sure,
behind Dante Moore, and Dante Moore obviously doing that before landing here in Oregon. Does that even fit the style of the mentality of Dylan as what we know the past couple years?
Let me not say that. He probably still would have got drafted if he would have declared out of the draft from Nebraska. Like, if he stayed there for the rest of his college career. But he would have been like a 4th or 5th round pick, bro.
Years. The thoughts of him being QB2 at least growing for the future?
Excuse me,
I'll hold off judgment till we hear from Dante Moore. How about that, Brandon? We'll see what ends up happening in terms of his decision, whether he does want to come back. I do think that we'll see what ends up. I'll hold off judgment.
Last couple years, the thoughts of him being QB2 at least growing for the future?
I'll hold off judgment till we hear from Dante Moore. How about that?
Yeah, we got to hear from Dante,
We'll see
Brandon.
what ends up happening in terms of his decision, whether he does want to come back. I do think that as you and I are speaking here on this Monday morning, there is maybe an inkling of a potential that Dante Moore does return.
If Dante come back,
Dylan Raiola,
he gonna have to learn, bro.
Understand that he's going to a place where the head coach in Dan Lanning is a former defensive coordinator. But what about Dan Lanning's teams have led you to believe that he coaches like a defensive coordinator, right? He is not conservative. He is aggressive. He allows his offense to go out there and flourish. And they're losing their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator. So what do we see here? We see them promoting internally. That says Dan believes that he wants the Oregon offense to be the Oregon offense, whether it's Kenny Dillingham, whether it's Will Stein, or now, of course, Drew Mehringer, who takes over as the new OC. I think that we should expect that the Oregon quarterback, no matter who it is, will be set up for success in a way that will benefit him and the Oregon offense at a high level.
It seems like they have a new blueprint there when it comes to Dan Lanning and the way they get the quarterbacks in the building. Bo Nix, of course, transferring in. We saw that. Dante Moore transferring in. Now you get Dylan Raiola. Is this maybe the mindset of like, hey, we may not get you 18 coming out, but in a couple years, you can come and play in Eugene.
Brandon, there's a real conversation around college football right now, especially in the heart of the portal, about whether or not that's actually a way to win. Because there are other positions like the offensive and defensive lines where the transfer portal just doesn't have game changers available. So if you are a head coach who's in charge of roster building, is it actually a better investment to invest in a quarterback who has already been developed? Because when you invest in them coming out of high school or at a very young age,
I feel like it's better
really
to invest
that they're going to be able to hit their ceiling. But that is something where the transfer portal does have multiple quarterbacks, as we've seen with the number of players who can step on campus and be a starter right away. So maybe in high school and at a young age, you invest in the offensive line and the defensive line. And then when it comes to the quarterback, you do just trade out for some certainty. You trade out for a player who has already been developed. You know, we see some of these schools that are making a decision to invest young with the player out of high school. But yes, one of the teams that's playing for the national championship, in fact, both the teams that are playing for a national championship, right? Indiana and Miami, they seem to be exhibiting the opposite, more of this Oregon model where, okay, we're going to build up everything else,
if you don't, they hop
and
in
then
the portal,
we'll go see what we can get each year in the transfer portal at the quarterback position. It is a different approach, but it might be the right one for the modern era.
I want to get to the portal in a second, but on the flip side of this, Nebraska, you look at Matt Rule. You had the quarterback. Is this a failure in terms of building around the guy? This is the guy you went after and promised, like, hey, we are going to build around Dylan and make this into a contender.
Yeah, some of this is going to be just the relationship business. I mean, the fact that you had so many connections, both in terms of your family, former Nebraska players, both in terms of your family being on the Nebraska coaching staff. I think that we all understood that the relationships there had sort of broken down to the point where imagining Dylan was going to stay in Lincoln seemed like it was far off when Matt Rule started to address his own coaching staff and looking to take the Nebraska program moving forward. I don't put that particularly as a failure on Matt Rule. However, I do think it is interesting that they thought they had Kenny Minchie locked up in this transfer portal cycle, the former Notre Dame backup quarterback who had committed to the Cornhuskers, only, to lose him to Kentucky. So I think that for Nebraska, it is a disappointing morning, not necessarily because you thought you would have had Dylan Raiola, but it just highlights the fact that you went from having Dylan Raiola to thinking that you had Kenny Minchie, and now all of a sudden in a very different position when it comes to the future of your offense and your quarterback position.
I don't know.
Hey, look, Nebraska's not alone. I want to go back to 2024 because we talk about how the portal has changed a lot of things, especially when it comes to QBs. And look at this shit. Everybody in 2024 currently either in the portal or with a different team. When you think of college football here as a whole, how has this changed maybe for the better or worse?
I think that quarterback development in the current offensive era with so much of the, the run pass option and you put defense in conflict, while some of these teams are going to recruit based on tools, when it comes to the decision of who's going to get out there and play, a lot of it's going to be on what you can handle, about what you can go out there and execute. And so the development, the ratings, the projections of the quarterbacks always fall into two different lanes. And it happens at the NFL level too, right? Because NFL coaches will say, I know what you were in college, but you've got all these tools. I can coach you into something else. And then coming out of high school, you've got these players with tools. You try to put them out on the field, and they just cannot play. They cannot execute at the high level. So the quarterback position, the way it is coached, coaches are always going to be torn between trying to develop you for what you can be one day or trying to make sure you can execute what you need to get wins. I think that the 2024 class, much like many of the others, really throughout the last 5 to 10 years, are always going to have some hits and misses. Because, I mean, C.J. Carr was on that list too, right? C.J. Carr had an awesome first year as a starter. I expect that he will continue to be one of the top quarterbacks in college football. So, yeah, you'll have a couple of guys with the physical tools who haven't put it together. But then you've also got your Julian Sayans, your CJ Carrs. You've got the ones who show that the rating system is still doing just fine.
Yeah, shout out to Carr and Puglisi there. I actually skipped over. I'm just so used to all the names just jumping into the portal. That's what we see nowadays. One more for you here, Chip. In terms of Sam Levitt, because he is the #1 guy on that list in terms of jumping into the portal and QB-wise, does this speed up his process knowing that Dylan has found a home and others? When you look at it, it's only Hassan Longstreet and now Sam Levitt. Your thoughts on maybe his future and what happens next?
Yeah, I think that this is a good thing for Miami. I think that this is a good thing for LSU, and both of those schools are going to enter next season, again, playing this game of likely needing a transfer quarterback to step in and lead you to what you want to be successful with. For Miami, it will be another college football playoff run. For Lane Kiffin, it is capitalizing on
Longstreet, low-key should go to Miami.
That you're going to be able to show up to LSU and help them fulfill all those expectations.
And
which, by the way,
Lane,
Lane, because I know you're a big fan of CBS Sports HQ, Lane, that's a championship in the first 4 years. So clearly, this is going to be a big decision for Sam Levitt that could make a few other pieces fall into place. I think that we are looking at the domino of Levitt now that will let us know what's next for Miami and LSU. But of course, keep it locked in with Chris Hummer and our boys at 24/7. They've got all the latest buzz from throughout the portal.
Look at you. They're trying to end this segment for me. Chip Patterson is always joining us when it comes on at breaking news. Dylan Raiola, of course, heading to Oregon. Patterson is always.
But that's going to do it for this reaction. Raiola to the Oregon Ducks going up to Eugene. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do y'all think about this move? Rated 1 out of 10. I'm going to give it probably a 5 right now because we don't know if Dante Moore going to come back. And if he comes back, I mean, Oregon got the best backup in the country going into next season. So, I like it for Raiola. It helps him out. Just didn't really work out at Nebraska, even though he threw for 2,000 yards, 18 TDs this year before he fractured his fibula. But yeah, I think it's a good move for Raiola. Go to a coach where that's really well respected in Dan Lanning, which he is a great coach. But yeah, we shall see what happens. But yeah, make sure y'all hit that sub button, turn them notifications on, and make sure you follow the socials on screen. Be much appreciated. And I'm out. Peace.